There were stars, he said. They burned my eyes. In Marcus Zuzak's The Book Thief, Max Vandenberg, a Jew in Nazi Germany, is hiding in the basement of a home in Molching outside of Munich. It is a fictional town. It is 1941. Liesel Miminger, an 11-year-old, lives with Hans and Rosa Huberman, and she secretly visits Max with her papa, Hans. Liesel was illiterate when she arrived 2 years earlier at the Huberman's home, and her Jewish friend Max is writing her a book about his experiences. He took a copy of Mein Kampf, the book by Adolf Hitler, and he painted over all the pages and then began to write for her a book about his experiences, his struggles, his hopes, and his dreams. Listen to this conversation with Liesel and Papa Hans. Max struggled to answer. When everything was quiet, I went up to the corridor, and the curtain in the living room was open just a crack. I could see outside. I watched only for a few seconds. Max had not seen the outside world for 22 months. There was no anger or reproach. It was Papa who spoke. How did it look, Max? Max lifted his head with great sorrow and great astonishment. There were stars. There were stars, and they burned my eyes. Darkness, friends, darkness, whether in the middle of the night or in the corner of a basement or in the throes of depression or in the doctor's office when the word cancer is used for the first time, darkness is real. It can be frightening, but darkness is part of life. Without it, we would not value light. In today's sermon, I'm going to live the Philippians text with you. As Kevin just read it from the New Revised Standard Version, I'm going to use the Common English Bible, which is an easy-to-read version released in 2011. Let's live it verse by verse. Let's ask God to shine the light of God's wisdom and understanding on these 7 verses that teach us more about being gospel partners. The Apostle Paul writes in verse 12, "Therefore, my loved ones," and the word is beloved, the people I love so intimately. "Therefore, my loved ones, just as you always obey me, not just when I am present, but now even more while I am away, carry out your own salvation with fear and trembling." Paul says, follow the path I've taught you, but work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. What in the world does Paul mean? I appreciate Eugene Peterson's translation. Be energetic in your life of salvation, reverent and sensitive before God. God is the one who enables you both to want and to actually live out God's good purposes, he says in verse 13. So why is it that I yearn to know what is right, to do what is right? Why do we desire to be moral, upright, honest, loving, justice-driven people? Paul says it is God who made us both to want and to actually live out God's good purposes, God's desires, God's will. So what does that look like for our children that got the little sneaker to put on their backpacks? And for the teachers, it's to do justice, to love kindness, to walk humbly. Jesus said it in 2 commandments: love God, love neighbor. Paul continues in verse 14 and 15, do everything without grumbling and arguing, so that you may be blameless and pure, innocent children of God, surrounded by people who are crooked and corrupt. Among these people, you shine like stars in the world. When we were in seminary, we took a preaching from the Psalms class with Dr. Elizabeth Ochtermeyer. And Elizabeth challenged us to open our eyes to see sermon illustrations all around us. Paul says, do everything without grumbling. Be blameless, pure, like innocent children. The people around you may be pretty crooked and corrupt. They may tell lies with ease, or reject the needy, or tweet hateful messages, or make ugly gestures at one another. But as God believers who call ourselves Christians, we shine like stars. Friends, I am not perfect, and if you have any question about that, see Laura. But yesterday, as I was heading into the city, I followed Dr. Ochtermeyer's advice. I had been working on the sermon here for several hours before I went down into town. And as I was on Warnell Road, just south of Waldo, maybe 6 blocks before you get to Pickleman's there, at 75th and Warnell, I was just saying, God, give me some illustrations of this sort of crooked and perverse generation. I don't really care for that imagery, but show me. And suddenly this Jeep came flying around me and pulled behind an SUV that was in the right lane and got up, I am convinced, within about 12 inches of the bumper and was just leaning forward. This guy was mad. And the person in the SUV was getting ready to turn to the right, so she turned her signal on, and he got right up on her, and when she turned into one of the stores there, he did what the Romans called digitus impecurious. They really had that word. It was using a particular finger that was not a very, very good symbol. And it struck me, well, first of all, thank you, Dr. Ochtermeyer, for teaching us to watch for these illustrations because they happen around us. And it made me wonder why. Why do we feel the need to get so angry? Why do we feel the need to feel like we've been offended when somebody turns right after giving plenty of indication with their signal? Why? So I look at this text and I think, okay, we are trying desperately to be a light, to be shining stars in the face of a generation that is quickly incensed. So why? Why did a nation take the beautiful star of David, the shield of David, the shield of Israel, and print it in yellow cloth and insist that Jews wear it during the World War II, leading to the death of over 6 million of our beautiful sisters and brothers within Judaism? Why? Why did humanity, when given the gift of Jesus the Christ, choose to put him to death? Why does it feel like we are distant stars trying to shine our light on a world that really doesn't want it, though we know we all need it? Verse 15, among these people, you shine like stars in the world because you hold on to the word of life. This will allow me to say on the day of Christ that I haven't run for nothing or worked for nothing. Why? Why do we shine like stars? Why does Liesel, the book thief, feel such love and appreciation for Max Vandenberg, her Jewish friend in her basement? For Max, it is dark. Even the stars burn his eyes. But Stephanie Meyer, the author of the Twilight series, writes, without the dark, we would never see the stars. We all grew up singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, but did you know that in September of 1880, William Rockhill Nelson and Samuel Morse founded what became the Kansas City Star? And one of his competitors, Eugene Field, who had he was editor of one of the 2 other morning papers, wrote, "Twinkle, twinkle, little star, bright and gossipy as you are, we can daily hear you speak for a paltry dime a week. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, bright and gossipy you are. Now, we all grew up singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, but maybe not this version, the one from Eugene Field. But did you know that it also has other verses? In 1947, these other verses sort of welled up within a nursery rhymes book. And so I ask, as I sing it, I ask you to think of someone in your life who for you shines like a star, that twinkles for you, or that did and who is no longer on this earth. Think of that person. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. When the blazing sun is gone, when he nothing shines upon, then you show your little light. Twinkle, twinkle all the night. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Then the traveler in the dark thanks you for your tiny spark. How could he see where to go if you did not twinkle so? Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. In the dark blue sky you keep, often through my curtains peep, for you never shut your eye till the sun is in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. As your bright and tiny spark lights the traveler in the dark, though I know not what you are, twinkle, twinkle, little star. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. There's a wonderful tradition at Grace Covenant that I am going to snitch and carry back with me to Virginia. And it's on the Sunday closest to Epiphany. This is the traditional day when the wise men from the east, following the star, discover the baby Jesus in Bethlehem. And on this Sunday, we each receive a star word to guide and bless us in the year ahead. I have noticed that there are extra star words in a basket out on the table in the concourse. And if you have not picked up one, if you're a guest today and just want the surprise of lifting up one of those and taking it with you, please do. It can become a word that really helps guide you as you strive to be that star shining in your world. So if these are applicable, I should be able to lift up a star, read its word, and then ask God to bring to my heart an illustration of that. Paul says, in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, you are like shining stars. So let's see. Mercy. I see the mercy that you extend to one another, the kindness that you do through KCK, Hot Lunch, and Uplift, and Heartland 180, for your compassion and your work to extend that mercy to others. Companionship. You know, when Jenny had to go have surgery and Shelley went with Jenny to go for the surgery, that's companionship. So awesome. Tim, when your dad died and you were in here playing piano, and we just talked back there about your dad. Companionship. Playing music with Donna Geckler last week. It's companionship. Ease. There's such an ease about the way in which Kevin Johnson leads us in our Bible study. It's calm, and it's rich, and it doesn't confront, but it asks questions, and there is ease. Gentleness. I see that in the way that Carolyn Chaffin picks up children in the child care program, Kathy Connor in Kids Day Out. We reviewed the job description for a KDO teacher, Kids Day Out teacher, and item number 7 or 8 on the job description is change dirty diapers. That's gentle. That's loving. Openness. Oh, wow. You all are an open congregation, a congregation that extends the love of Christ to all people. No rejection. You can tell I might be going back to Virginia. We are going back to Virginia, but I interviewed a church about 2 weeks ago, and one of the questions was, where do you fit on the liberal conservative scale? I was like, okay. I said, here's how I would answer that. I am an evangelical progressive. And they went, what? And I said, I'm evangelical because I'm all about Jesus. I mean, I just think Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, and He has made such a difference in my life. But I'm also progressive in that I'm very open about LGBTQ+. I am very, very open about race, about women in leadership. I think there should always be strong women in leadership. And so I would be an evangelical progressive. And they said, okay, now could you answer the question? Where do you stand on the scale between conservative and liberal? I thought, I'm going back to Virginia. Comfort. This morning, Gina came and sang with the praise team, and her dad died yesterday at 5 o'clock. And when I came in the room, Denise was sitting with Gina, just the two of them. Comfort. Shining stars. I sure hope I don't get anti-disestablishmentarianism. Curiosity. When we were outside playing with the children in water play, and they did not get me very wet. I was drenched. But, they're so curious. They had bubbles out there, and the bubbles were floating around. And then one of them found a ladybug, and they're curious. They want to know, what's that metal over there on the wall with those people's names? Jane and I went out and spread Jim's ashes this week. They were curious that back here there are ashes of loved ones spread in the memorial garden. But that curiosity can play a game with them too, Jake, right back there when y'all are in VBS doing recreation. Serenity. I see that serenity when you've had a recurrence of cancer and you just say, I cannot let it consume my life. And that serenity comes and inspires me as your pastor of festivity. Oh, Grace Covenant, confetti, goats at Christmas. Goats are not good, okay? Do not give goats to Mitch and Sue, okay? It's just not a good thing. I will call them and say, Mitch and Sue, do not order goats, okay? Donkey, Mama Rosa's great, and the chickens, and any sheepies that we could get. But the goats they almost took David Steen out this year. Festivity. You all are just amazing in your energy and your love. Truthfulness. When we are together and we disagree, we are truthful with one another, and I see that in you. And I believe we can stand with one another and share differences. I mean, we have at the beginning of the session meeting, we have an open forum, and we invite people to come and share with the elders what you're feeling, what you would suggest, and that truthfulness is always welcome. We have to understand. We have to listen. And then graciousness. You are so gracious. Somebody said this morning, do you have any nights left between now and September 9th when you all leave? And I said, I think we have 3, and 5 invitations have been offered for those nights. So the graciousness, but I see it in you. The graciousness with which you introduced me to a family that's new here. And you bring them up and introduce them and don't go rushing to lunch. You bring them forward and let me meet them. You are gracious in the way that you extend that love of Christ. Grace Covenant. You are a gracious people. Paul says in verse 17, But even if I'm poured out like a drink offering upon the altar of service for your faith, I am glad. And in a shorter translation, it's even if I am killed because of your faith and mine, I'm glad. I'm glad with all of you. You should be glad about this in the same way. And then Paul concludes these verses by saying, rejoice with me. Rejoice. Friends, I rejoice that through Christ